All right, welcome. Today we are taking a deep dive into Deuteronomy chapter 14. But we're not just going to read it. Oh no, we are going to build a visual guide, verse by verse, that's so vivid it'll be impossible to forget. Think of it as a cinematic journey. Ready? Let's go.
Now, before we even hit verse 1, the chapter kind of gives away its own secret sauce right here in verse 2. This is the big why. This phrase, a special treasure, that's the key to everything. Every single rule we're about to look at is built on this one powerful idea. You are set apart for a reason.
So, you see, our journey has to start with identity, not with rules. It makes perfect sense, right? Before you can figure out what you're supposed to do, you got to know who you are. This first part really sets that stage. Okay, verse 1. The scene opens up, and we see someone who is deep in mourning. Now, around them, other cultures might be doing these really extreme dramatic displays of grief, wailing, even cutting themselves. But this verse paints a totally different picture. Imagine someone just standing, quiet, dignified. They refuse to scar their own body. The visual here is all about self-respect, a respect that comes from knowing who you belong to. You don't disfigure yourself because you're a child of God. And now, verse 2, the theme we started with. This is the moment in our story where the camera just zooms way out. It pulls back from that one person standing tall, and now we see a whole community. And you can almost picture them glowing with this unique light, totally distinct from all the other nations on earth. This isn't about being better, it's about being different, set apart for a special, holy purpose. It's about being that special treasure. The scene shifts. We're now walking through a bustling, ancient marketplace. You can almost smell the spices and hear the chatter. This next section lays out what you could call a divine diet plan. But these aren't just random, restrictive rules. Think of them as daily choices, things you eat every day, that are constant, tangible reminders of that special identity we just talked about.
Verse 3 gives us the big, overarching principle for this whole section. It's super simple. The visual is direct. Just picture a hand held up firmly, waving no over some weird, unidentifiable dish at a market stall. That's it. It's the headline for everything else that's about to follow. If it's considered an abomination, it's off the menu. Plain and simple.
So, how do you know what's okay? Well, verse 6 gives us the master key for any animal that lives on land. It's a really simple two-part visual test. Imagine a mental checklist in your head. First question, does it have a hoof that is completely split? Check. Second question, does it chew the cud? Check. If an animal passes both of these visual tests, it's clean. This is the filter for pretty much every creature on the land.
Verses 4 and 5? Well, this is the yes list. Let's picture a really vibrant, peaceful scene. You've got a big family farm with oxen, sheep, and goats grazing happily. And then just beyond the farm, on these sun-drenched hills, you see wild deer and gazelle. These are all the familiar approved animals, and yep, every single one of them passes that two-part test. Now verses 7 and 8 give us the no list, and we see exactly why each one fails. It's so logical. Picture a camel. It chews the cud, right? Yes, but its foot is more of a soft pad. It's not fully split, so it fails. Then you have the hare and the rock hyrax. They also chew the cud, but they don't have split hooves at all. Fail. And finally the pig. Now, its hoof is perfectly split, but it doesn't chew the cud, so it fails the second test. See? It's a clear binary system.
Okay, so we've covered the land. We have a clear system for what walks on the earth, but our tour of the marketplace isn't over. You gotta be wondering, what about the creatures that swim in the water or fly through the air? What are the rules for them?
Verses 9 and 10 takes us right to the river's edge. And the rule here is actually even simpler. Just visualize a clear, flowing stream. On one side, you can see all these glistening fish with shimmering scales and little fins that guide them. All of these are permitted. But then, on the other side, down in the murky depths, are the creatures without them, like eels or maybe some shellfish. Those are considered unclean. It's another super sharp, easy-to-remember visual distinction. Now we look up to the skies. Verse 11 just says, "You may eat all clean birds." Simple enough. But then from verse 12 through 18, we get this long, specific list of what's off limits. Let's picture a quick montage. We see the majestic eagle, a symbol of power but forbidden. Then the vulture, a master of the sky that feasts on the bed. Then the silent owl, a creature of the night. The list goes on, but a pattern starts to emerge pretty quickly, right? These are mostly predators and scavengers.
Verse 21 gives us two final and pretty profound dietary rules. First, don't eat an animal that just died on its own of natural causes. The visual here is of a sick animal respectfully set apart.
It's a clear boundary for health and for life. Then, the second rule, you shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Wow. This is such a powerful image of compassion. Picture a cook about to make a meal who just stops and separates the kid from the very pot of milk that was meant to give it life. It's a really deep statement about respecting the sacred bonds of life itself.
Okay, our tour is moving. We're leaving the kitchen and the marketplace, and we're heading right into the heart of the community's economy. This next section is all about giving, but let's call it a celebration fund, because this isn't about loss or heavy obligation, it's about purpose-driven, shared joy. Verses 22 and 23 introduce this idea of the tithe, but look at why they do it. Imagine a farmer joyfully harvesting his crops. He carefully sets aside the best tenth of everything, not with a heavy heart, but with this feeling of excitement. Why? Because this portion isn't a tax. It's basically the ticket to a huge national party, a pilgrimage where he and his family will go feast and worship. It creates this real, tangible, joyful connection to God.
But what if you live too far away to carry all that grain and produce? Well, verses 24 through 26 lay out this brilliant, super practical plan. Step 1, visualize the farmer turning all his bulky produce into a small, light bag of silver coins. Easy. Step 2, he travels light and easy to the central sanctuary. Step 3, once he gets there, he uses that money to buy whatever his heart desires, the best food, the best wine, you name it. And Step 4, he throws a massive, joyous feast with his entire family. This shows it's not about rigid rules, it's about making sure everyone can participate in the joy.
Now, right in the middle of all this feasting and celebration, verse 27 adds a crucial detail. Picture our celebrating family again. They spot a Levite, a spiritual leader who doesn't own any land, and they don't just nod at him, they warmly invite him over to their table, they pull up a chair, and they share everything they have with him. The point is crystal clear. In this celebration, absolutely no one gets left out.
And that idea of inclusion leads us perfectly into our final scene. The concept of giving expands from a personal celebration fund into something even bigger, a community-wide social safety net designed to make sure nobody ever falls through the cracks.
Verse 28 sets up a special rhythm. Every third year, something different happens. That big number 3 on the screen, that's our cue. It signals a shift in focus, away from the individual family's big party and toward the collective well-being of the entire local community.
And this just spells it all out so beautifully. Verse 29 explains that this special third-year tithe is brought to a local storehouse. And who does it feed? The spiritual leader, the immigrant, the orphan, and the widow. Just picture those 4 groups being welcomed at the gates of the town's storehouse. They're given everything they need, and they leave full and satisfied. It's an amazing system of social responsibility that makes sure the most vulnerable are always cared for.
And so our tour ends here. From rules about how to mourn, to what's on our plate, to how we celebrate and share what we have, every single instruction in this chapter circles right back to that core idea of being a special treasure. And it leaves us with a really powerful question for today. How do our own daily, seemingly small choices, what we eat, what we buy, what we share, how do they all add up to define our identity and shape the kind of community we're building right now?